Hello friends, this is Hedda. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about the books that I read in May and also show you all of the spreads that I made last month in my reading journal. We are almost halfway through the year, so in my next video, in my June reads video, I'm going to do a little half-year check-in and just go through the yearly spreads that I have in my journal, like my trackers, my TBR list, my yearly challenge, like all of that stuff. That will be in my next reading journal video. This journal is going to last me for the whole year, so as you can see, I am not even halfway through yet. So definitely stay tuned for my next reading journal video. I read 3 books in May, and I really feel like I'm getting more back into a reading groove, and I'm really happy about that. I feel like I'm reading more. But before I talk about those books, a big thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Skillshare is an online learning platform with thousands of classes to help you improve, learn, and explore your own creativity. On Skillshare, you can pick from nearly any topic and learn to improve your skills on your own time. Since coming back to Norway in May, I have finally had access to all of my art supplies again, and I've been able to practice some painting. I really want to get better at painting with gouache, so I'm taking this class by Dylan Mierzwinski called Getting to Know Your Paint, Watercolor Gouache and Acrylic Gouache. And this class is really great because it has different exercises to help you practice and explore on your own rather than just listen to a lecture. And there are dedicated exercises for each medium, so like exercises for watercoloring, gouache, and also acrylic gouache. I'm actually using my 8x8 inches sketchbook from Archer and Olive for all of these practices. And the gouache I'm using is from Holbein, and this is the same gouache that I got in my Sibylline Maynet Mossery gouache box. You may remember that I did an unboxing video of these gouaches and like sketchbooks and everything. It's been a couple of years now, I think. But yeah, I'm really enjoying that. Finally starting to figure out what kind of brushes I like and what kind of consistency I like on the paint and stuff like that. And so it's really helpful to have Skillshare as a resource. And I feel like I can learn a lot from different teachers on Skillshare with like different techniques, different colors, different motifs. There are so many different classes on Skillshare on painting, not just for gouache, but any type of paint really. The first 1,000 people to click on the link in the description box will get a 1-month free trial to Skillshare. There is no limit to how many classes you can take and participate in, and I think that this is a really great opportunity to try something new or to further develop a skill that you're already working on. And remember, not all hobbies have to become side hustles, and it's okay to just enjoy your hobbies without having to create something with it. It can just be something that you do to pass the time or something that you do because you enjoy it. And it's okay to have hobbies that you're not very good at. It's okay to do things that you're not good at. If you think it's fun, that's the most important. So thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video and for allowing us to learn new things every day. And now let's get into my reading journal. The very first spread we are going to make is of course my cover page for May. I like to make a cover page before every month just to have something that separates the books that I read, and it makes it feel more like a journal when I do this monthly check-in kind of. I used to make my reading journal spreads throughout the month, but recently I've started to kind of make them all at once at the end of the month. And I'm not sure exactly why, but that's just how it's happened this year. I guess in a way I've had less time to film or like less opportunities, and it hasn't really been something that I could just sit down and do any day of the week because we have been traveling and stuff. But now that I'm back in Norway, that might change a little bit. So yeah, I filmed this video over the course of 3 days, so my nail polish does change a little bit and the lighting also changes a little bit, but I don't think it's too noticeable, and also that's just the reality of this. I usually can't do more than 1 reading journal spread in one go because it is a lot of thinking and reflecting on the books that I have read, and I just want to focus on 1 book at a time, if that makes sense. I decided to make a really simple cover page this time, so I got this big vinyl sticker from Mary Nasuli art of this like reading witch, like book witch. I love the colors. They're like brown and pink. And since the sticker is really big, I didn't want too much else on the page. So I used some washi paper from Paper Monogatari, and I kind of just like cut out a big rectangle to cover most of the page, and then I just stuck the sticker on top of that. And I used some other like floral stickers from Nasuli art as well, just to add a little bit more to the page. And then the title sticker, the May sticker, is also from Paper Monogatari. I've been loving using these in my reading journal. You'll see like most of my like monthly title stickers are from Paper Monogatari at this point. They just fit so well, and they are kind of transparent, so they work really well with any color scheme really. This book witch theme is just so fitting for my reading journal, and I combined it with some of the new stamps and washi tapes from Notebook Therapy. The set is called Our Stories, and it's all inspired by reading journals and fits really well. So I'll be using a lot of that in the setup as well. And if you ever want to buy anything from Notebook Therapy, you always get 10% off your order with my code mochibujo10. So definitely remember that next time you want to buy something from them. I'm really happy with how this page turned out because it was really easy to set up, because I just had that one sheet of paper as the background and then the big vinyl sticker as kind of the main art piece, and then the rest of the stickers I just stuck on there wherever they fit kind of. And then on the other side of the spread, I'm going to have the books that I read throughout the month. So that's what the frames are for. I got these frames in Japan. You'll see them in my last stationery like unboxing video, because I did make a little video of the stationery that I got in Japan and some other stuff that I got in the mail. So I used the strip of the same washi paper that I used on the other side. This was kind of just the rest of that sheet that I wanted to use for something, so I put it on the spread, and then I just decorated with a few washi tapes and stamps and stickers. Not too much stuff because I wanted to keep it fairly simple. The frames are pretty large, so they're gonna take up most of the space. I just wanted something to kind of hold it all together, if that makes sense, like some stickers and washi tape and stamps to kind of put behind the frames as a background kind of. And then for the title, I usually do a little title where I write like books that I read or books this month or something along those lines. So for this one, I used one of the wooden stamps from Notebook Therapy, and I just made a little frame. And then I played around for a little bit before I decided to cut it out and glue it in on top. And it's pretty small, but to be fair, I didn't really have much room for a big title because the frames were so large. My notebook is an A5 size, so it is pretty standard size as far as notebooks go, but these frames are a bit larger than the frames that I normally use, so yeah. I used some more of the book stickers from Nasuli art to just add a little bit of pink onto the spread so that it wasn't all brown. And that's pretty much the only extra thing I did with the spread. Just putting down stickers here and there, kind of behind the frames, so that the frames are still the center of attention, but also like creating a little bit of movement or dimension to the spread by adding things kind of behind the frames. Also, the frames are kind of yellow or like cream paper, so I feel like it doesn't necessarily fit that well with the bright white background. That's also why I like to have some things behind the frames so that it doesn't look like it's clashing too much with the white background. That's just me though. I know a lot of people don't really care about different colors of white, but I do. I found this cover page a little bit refreshing because my collages on my cover pages in my reading journal tend to be very over the top, or like have a lot of components and smaller pieces put together into these like big elaborate collages. So it was a little bit nice to just have a simpler setup for this page, but I still think that it looks really good. I put another witch sticker. My cat is just trying to climb me like a tree. I wish he would just sit in my lap, but he doesn't like it when I speak English. Somehow he always comes to snoop when I'm recording voiceovers, so I don't know what his deal is. Anyway, these star rating stamps came in the Our Stories wooden stamp set, and I decided to use them this month. So I usually never star rate any of the books that I read, but I decided to do it this month just to try it, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And now it's time to move on to the first book that I read in May. And for this spread, I used some of my own stickers, the jellyfish in space stickers. You can find them on my website, ikigaipapir.com. That is my little sticker shop. And this book is called The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I did not really pick this book. This book was picked for me by the book club over on my Discord. The Discord is for patrons only, so if you are a patron of mine, then you have access to this Discord. And a couple of the members actually started a book club. I'm not really in charge of it. They are running it, but I wanted to participate. And so I read this book that they picked together for the month of May. The City We Became is a very unique book, like very unusual, I would say. I have read 2 book series by N.K. Jemisin before, so I was kind of prepared for the type of story because Jemisin usually writes very big stories. But I will say that this one was a little bit different. I mean, some similarities to her other books is that the story is very large. It's like about the whole world. It's not just about some people and what they go through. It's like the whole world or the universe, or I don't really know how to explain it. But if you have read any books by N.K. Jemisin before, then you know exactly what I'm talking about, I think. This book has a really cool premise. I think that it would do really well as a movie or a TV show. This book is set in New York City in the US. And I had to look up a map over the city because the city is very important in this book. It is about New York. And I have been to New York a couple of times, but mostly to Manhattan and Brooklyn. And all the while I was there, I had no idea where I was because everything looked the same to me. And that's kind of how it is when you visit a new big city like that. So I don't really have any relationship to New York. I think that this book would be even more enjoyable for someone who knows New York well, maybe someone who lives there or have lived there in the past and kind of knows the different areas and the type of people who live in New York, because that is really what this book is about. Like, it's really about people who kind of embody what New York is like without saying too much, because I don't want to spoil anything from this book, but I do think that the story is very unique. The way it is told is also very interesting. It is definitely a work of art, I would say. This is not a normal book. I probably would not recommend this book to someone who doesn't read a lot. This is a book for people who read a lot and who are really into books, I think. But even then, I don't think it's for everyone. I don't know. We had some mixed opinions on it in the book club, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's great to have books that kind of evoke feelings and different opinions and stuff like that. So yeah, it was definitely an interesting read. For the first third or half of the book, I was really confused about what was happening. This is one of those books that you just get thrown into right away. Like, you're just right there in the action from the very first page. And at first, I felt like the prologue didn't match the rest of the book, and I was really confused. But it turns out that the prologue was actually a short story that Jemisin wrote for a magazine or something like that, and then she developed the book from that short story, and then the short story ended up becoming the prologue. And I thought that was really interesting. This book is also very much about race and queerness and gender, social status. Like, so many different topics are being touched upon in this book. I think that this book was really interesting. I'm not claiming that it's my favorite book because it really isn't. There were many parts of the book that I didn't enjoy, and I ended up giving it 3 stars because I think that objectively it is a good book and it is different, and that's a really cool thing. But personally, for me, some parts of it was a little bit difficult to get through. It was a little bit confusing and it felt a little bit scattered, and I couldn't really tell what was going on at all times. And then it kind of ended really abruptly. There is a second book. It is a duology, so there is a second book. I will probably read it just because of the interesting way it was written, and yeah, but maybe not right away because it was very heavy and it will take a little while for me, I think, to start the second one. It is also very American, if that makes sense. Maybe this won't make sense to the Americans watching, but it feels like a quintessential American book, and the way that people interact and the way that race is discussed is very American. And I mean, that's not a bad thing. It is a look into American society and maybe New York as a society, even though it is a sci-fi book. But yeah, it was very interesting. Maybe a little bit too much at times for me, just because it was like very New York, like everything is about New York. And as someone who doesn't really have a relationship to New York, that was a little bit difficult for me to understand at times, but I can definitely see like a similar story being applied to a different city, and I can definitely imagine what the characters would be like if the story was set somewhere else that I know better. And I thought that that was really interesting. And that's also kind of why I think that it would be a really good movie. Just quickly before I run out of time, the circle cloud stickers that I used here and also the black washi tapes are from Tukti, and the jellyfish sticker is from my own shop, like I mentioned. And I also used a white washi tape with stars on it. I got that one in Japan. I think it's from BGM. And I think that I could talk about this book for hours. Like, our book club meeting was, I think, almost 2 hours long, and we were just going on forever about different topics in the book. So it's a great book for book clubs, I think, and for like creating discussions and talking about it. So I can definitely recommend it for a book club. But now let's move on to the second book that I read in May, and here I went for a more lush green theme that is kind of a stark contrast to the previous spread, but that's just how I roll when it comes to my reading journal. It's all random colors and fun themes. The second book that I read in May is a novella, and it's called A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. This is actually the sequel to A Psalm for the Wild Built that I read earlier in the spring, and I didn't know that there was a second one when I read that book, but some of you guys were tipping me about the second book in the comments underneath that video where I talked about the first book. So I decided to pick it up in May, and I'm really glad I did because, you know, I really loved the first one and I really loved the second one too. So for the decorations on the spread, I used some of the washi tapes that came in the Komorebi notebook and washi tape gift set from Notebook Therapy. I really love the green colors, and it's just so calm, and although it was unintentional, I think that it fits the theme of this book really well. I especially like the pet tape that I used as kind of a border along the top of the spread because it makes it look like we're kind of standing under a big tree and there's like lots of leaves and foliage above you, if that makes any sense. Anyway, this book is like a really warm hug. That's the best way to describe it. I think it is one of those books that doesn't rely on a tragedy or like something awful happening to kind of further the plot. It's just about this character, Dex, and a robot. And the first book was definitely about Dex's mental health and kind of followed their journey to self-realization in a way. And then the second book really dives deeper into their mental health and how they see themselves and the way that they relate to other people. And I actually really relate to Dex. I find that Dex reacted to certain situations in a very similar way that I would if I was in that situation. And it was kind of nice to read a book where I could relate to the main characters so much. Although the book is about the robot, I just find that the story, like the conversations between the humans and the robot, is just really interesting, and the society in this book is just so peaceful, and everything is just peaceful, and nobody's mean to each other, and it's, you know, all about the characters' inner life, if that makes sense. And I really enjoyed that. It just felt really calm, and it left me with a really good feeling. And it's not always books leave you with a good feeling, but this one really did. And I felt really, just felt really good after reading it. I don't know. I definitely need to read more Becky Chambers because I'm a fan. I'm a big fan after reading these two books. I really enjoyed the discussions on like what our purpose is, and feeling like we need to have a purpose in life and not just live, like not just exist. And I find that really interesting because it's something that I think about a lot as well, like what is my purpose in life and what am I supposed to be doing versus what do I want to do and what makes me happy and what kind of life do I want to live. And this book was just a really calm, soothing discussion on maybe we don't need to have a purpose, and was kind of refreshing because our society is so much about the hustle, you know, and how we need to do all these things to be happy, and we're told that we need X, Y, Z to really, you know, live our life to the fullest, and we need all these things, but, you know, maybe we don't. If you're feeling a little bit down or like you have an existential crisis, I would really recommend this book, or rather the first one first. Read the first book first and then this one, because they are just really lovely books, and I don't think any books have ever made me feel this way before, so they are very special. The third and last book that I read in May is very different, and I used some of the R Stories washi tapes for the spread because I wanted to have that book feel, and I wanted to kind of tie it together with the cover page that I made for May, because the other two spreads that I made were quite different, and I just wanted more of this like kind of vintage book vibe and a little bit witchy, which is fitting because the third book that I read is called The Bone Witch, and it's by Rin Chupeco. And I'm not gonna lie, this is not my favorite book. I think I actually gave it 1 star. It's not because it's like badly written. I can't really tell if a book is poorly written or well written or whatever, but this one was just not what I was expecting and not what I wanted. Or I shouldn't say that I didn't expect it, because I did go in blind. I saw the cover and the title of the book and I was like, this sounds great, I'm gonna read it. It turns out it was a young adult novel. It's a trilogy, and it starts with like a 12-year-old kid, and I think that maybe if I read this book when I was a teenager, maybe when I was like a young teenager, like middle school age, I would probably have loved it. I've always loved young adult novels because when I was growing up, that's really the only genre I read. But I find more and more that it becomes a little bit unbelievable to read stories about tweens or like really young teenagers, and then the narration is as if an adult wrote it, because an adult did write it, but like their train of thought is not that of a 12-year-old, if that makes sense. Now, I will say that this book is kind of interestingly written. I would compare it to The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss in the way that it's written, because it has that present time where the main character is like telling a story about what they went through to get to that point. And that's exactly how The Name of the Wind is written as well. And then you kind of get the narration of the story of the character when they were younger. I neither like nor dislike that format. I think it's fine. It just really reminded me of The Name of the Wind. It also reminded me a lot of Memoirs of a Geisha, because the main character, Tia, she is kind of sent to live at this house, and there's like a mother in the household. That was quotation marks, mother. And like other trainees, and they're training to become this type of entertainer who is also a magic wielder. And if you've read Memoirs of a Geisha or even watched the movie, that is kind of the same premise. And there's like something special about the main character in Memoirs of a Geisha. It's that she has like blue eyes and she's very beautiful. And in this book, it's that she has this special magic because she's a necromancer, which that part was kind of cool because I haven't read very many books about necromancy. But yeah, I definitely felt like I had read the story before, if that makes sense. But I guess kind of my main problem with the book was that the narration didn't seem very genuine. Maybe that's the point, because it is told in retrospective. Like the main character is definitely older in the present story than she was in the past story that she's kind of telling. And maybe it gets better. There are 2 more books in the series, but for now I don't think that I will continue. But maybe if some of you guys have read it, you can tell me if it gets better or if you agree or disagree with my thoughts on the book. Let me just quickly mention how I have star rated these books, because I don't know if this is something that I'm going to keep doing, but I did it this month, and my stars, I have 5 stars, and it's very subjective. I am not judging the books objectively, like, is this a well-written book or is this objectively good? But rather I am rating it based on like how much I enjoyed it and how much I liked reading it. And so that's how I ended up with this rating of these books. So The City We Became, I gave 3 stars because it was a little bit difficult to get through, and that part was not so enjoyable for me, but I did enjoy the story and how different it was. And then A Prayer for the Crown Shy, 5 stars. I would give it 6. You know, it's just that kind of book. I loved it. And then finally, The Bone Witch, which I gave 1 star because there were so many things that I didn't like about it and things that I didn't enjoy. So yeah, that's kind of what I ended up with. And there you have it. Those are the 3 books that I read in May. I hope you'll let me know in the comments if you have read any of these books and what you thought about them. That is all for today, and while I do a little flip through so that you can get a closer look at the spreads that I made in this video, again, I want to give a big thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Remember to check out the link in the description box so you can get a 1-month free trial to Skillshare. Also, a big thank you to all of my patrons who support me every month. I really appreciate you. And also thank you to everyone who has placed an order in my little sticker shop for the past couple of weeks. I did a big shop update and you guys kept me busy. It is the reason why this video is a little bit late, because I did have a lot of orders to pack. And of course, that's a great problem to have. Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. I've been going to a few markets in Oslo recently and it's been really fun. I announce which markets I'm going to over on my Instagram, so if you're in the Oslo area, definitely keep an eye out for that. And if you do stop by, be sure to say hi. I think that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to click the like button and also to subscribe so that you can stay tuned for my next videos. I hope you're all having a lovely day and I'll see you next time. Bye!